I'm 77 years old, and for the first time in my life I had to leave home and go to a retirement home. It wasn't an easy decision. In fact, it was one of the hardest I've ever made. For 2 months, I lived away from everything that was familiar to me. My home, my objects, my little daily rituals. Everything changed, and I can tell you, this experience changed me from the inside. When I got there, I took with me not only a suitcase full of clothes, but also a heart full of uncertainties. Would I be treated well? Would I be forgotten? Or worse, would I start to forget who I was? But time passed, and in that time I've seen, heard, and experienced things that have completely changed the way I see the world, the people around me, and even myself. Today I want to share with you what I've learned, because if someone had told me these things a few years ago, I might have made different choices, spoken words that stuck, and made better use of the time that I now know is our most precious asset. Going into a care home is something that many people fear, and I understand. For years, just hearing those words made my heart squeeze. I thought it marked the end of the line, as if it meant that my usefulness was over, that my presence was a nuisance, or that I would be cast aside, forgotten by everyone. I thought that there, in that place, I would just wait for time to pass, in silence. But the truth is quite different. From the very first days, I realized that this place wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. An environment where life stories intersect, where each face carries memories, losses, achievements, and regrets. The coexistence, the shared silences, the conversations that come out of nowhere, all this made me reflect like never before. There, between those simple walls, I experienced moments of profound wisdom, moments that made me look inwards, rethink choices, and see things clearly that, in the rush of life, I had simply overlooked. And that's why now, with serenity in my heart, I want to share with you the 7 greatest lessons I've learned in the last 2 months. Lessons that don't depend on how old you are, but on your willingness to look at life through new eyes. Lesson 1. Life is made up of cycles, and accepting this brings peace. For a long time I saw life as a straight line, where everything should follow a continuous course, without sudden changes. I believed that if I tried hard enough, I could keep everything under control, my health, my routine, my relationships. But when I was faced with the reality of a retirement home, I realized that this vision was an illusion. Life is not a straight line. Life is made up of cycles. Accepting this was perhaps one of the hardest lessons, and at the same time, the most liberating. There, in that environment where time seems to pass in a different way, I saw that each person is at a different stage of their journey. Some arrive full of resistance, wanting to go back to the way things were before, like me. Others have already understood that life changes, and that clinging to the past is like trying to hold water with your hands, impossible and frustrating. I've realized that throughout our lives, we resist change too much. We try to keep things as they were, as if the past were a safe place where everything made sense. We carry memories with such attachment that we often stop living in the present. We get stuck in the before without realizing that the now also deserves our attention. At the retirement home, I had time to observe, reflect, and understand that each phase has its own beauty and lessons to learn. What seemed like the end was actually just the beginning of another cycle, a calmer, more introspective but still valuable cycle. I learned that youth has its energy, but maturity has its wisdom. And old age has the unique ability to look back with understanding and forward with serenity. When I stopped fighting time, when I stopped longing to return to days gone, I found a peace I had never experienced before. This acceptance didn't come suddenly. It came little by little, like the light of dawn that slowly illuminates everything. With every conversation with other residents, every memory shared, every silence respected, I came to understand that there is no shame in growing old. There is no defeat in living through a new cycle. On the contrary, there is dignity. There is strength. There is depth. Time doesn't take away what we are, it reveals it to us. And when we stop fearing the cycle we're living through, we start to really enjoy it. Understanding that life is made up of cycles has brought me lightness. And more than that, It made me realize that no matter what stage you're in, there's always room for learning, for peace, and for starting again in a different way. Today, I no longer regret what has passed, nor do I fear what is to come. I live this moment with gratitude, and I invite you to do the same, because accepting the cycle we're in is perhaps the greatest sign of wisdom we can achieve. Lesson 2. Loneliness hurts less than bad company. There is a kind of loneliness that is physical, when we are alone in an environment with no company, no voices, no touch. But there is another, more subtle and painful kind, which many people carry without realizing it, the loneliness you feel even when surrounded by people. During the 2 months I spent in the care home, I saw this clearly. I met people who had been surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues all their lives, always at parties, meetings, appointments. However, it only took a more sincere conversation for them to reveal something profound. Even with all these people around, they often felt invisible, ignored, voiceless. The presence of others didn't fill the emptiness they felt inside. At the same time, I saw others who rarely received visitors. Some hadn't been seen by anyone for years, and yet there was a surprising serenity about them. They walked calmly, smiled lightly, and seemed to have made peace with something much greater than isolation. They had reconciled with themselves. It was then that I understood. Being at peace with yourself is better than being surrounded by people who don't value you. Bad company weighs you down. It charges, it judges, it silences. It makes you feel small in your own home, in your own life. You're there, but you're not heard. Your feelings are minimized, your needs ignored, your words interrupted. This is true loneliness, being next to someone who doesn't see you. How many times in an attempt to avoid being alone do we keep people around who drain our energy, who diminish our dreams, who hurt with words or calculated silences? And how many times do we pretend that everything is fine just to avoid facing the fear of being alone? In the nursing home, I had time to reflect, and I realized that there is immense freedom in choosing one's own peace, even if it means distancing oneself from those who are not good for you. I understood that it's better to have lunch alone than to sit at the table with those who despise you. It's better to walk in silence than to hear hurtful words. Solitude, when chosen, can be a place of healing. A space where you find yourself, rediscover your voice, and realize that you can be your own best companion. Of course, we all need affection, true bonds, sharing, but not at any cost, not at the expense of our inner peace. I've learned that it takes courage to let go of certain people, courage to close doors that take away our joy, and the courage to understand that it's not selfish to prioritize emotional well-being. It's wisdom. Today, I don't fear loneliness. I do fear empty company, forced relationships, conversations where there is no listening. I prefer the silence that soothes to the noise that hurts. And if there's one thing I can tell you clearly, it's don't accept anything less than respect and true presence, because loneliness, when welcomed with serenity, can teach you more than years of living with people who have never really seen you. Lesson 3. Time is more valuable than any gift. During the days I spent in the care home, I noticed something that was often repeated. There was always a silent expectation hanging in the air, a glance at the door, an ear to the phone, a heart hoping for a simple gesture, a visit, a phone call, a hug. It wasn't about expensive presents, parties, or big surprises. It was simply about time. Many who were there, like me, wanted nothing more than a few minutes with their loved ones. The sparkle in the eyes of someone receiving an unexpected visit, the contained joy of hearing a familiar voice on the phone, the emotion of receiving a sincere hug. These moments were worth more than any material gift. And that's when I realized time is the most valuable gift anyone can give. There's no packaging, no tie, no value that can compare to it. Because time is finite, and every second we give someone is a part of our life that will never come back. And when someone chooses to share it with us, they are saying, without words, that we are important. I looked at my own life and saw how many times I myself failed to give my time to those who deserved it most. Moments when I was too busy, too rushed, too distracted. How many times I put off that visit, that conversation, that hug, and the later often didn't come. I remembered the times I bought presents, trying to make up for absences, believing that a beautiful object could replace my real presence. But there, observing so many waiting hearts, I understood that no gift can replace time spent with love and attention. The happiest people I met in those 2 months weren't those who had the most possessions, the most material memories, the most great stories. They were the ones who received time, quality time, real time, and this realization changed the way I see relationships. Today I understand that the greatest gesture of love is being present. It's sitting next to someone, listening patiently, looking them in the eye, holding their hand. These are the moments that stick in the memory, that warm the heart, that give meaning to life. And it doesn't take much. Sometimes a short visit can change someone's whole day. A simple phone call can soothe the soul. A hug can heal a long longing. Time is like that, small on the clock, huge in the heart. In short, I've learned that the true richness of a life lies in the moments shared, and that we should never underestimate the value of being present. Because one day what will remain of us in the memories of others will not be what we gave, but the time we were together. And if I could go back in time, I'd use fewer words and more presence, less haste and more attention, fewer excuses and more encounters, because once time has passed, it never returns. But the love we give in that time remains even when we are no longer here. Lesson 4. Forgiveness is liberating. Holding a grudge ages the soul. During my days in the care home, I had the privilege of hearing many stories. Long life stories marked by loves, losses, achievements, and hurts. What struck me most was not the great achievements, but the pain that still inhabited hearts. For even after decades, I talked to people who carried old resentments, some 30, 40 years old. They were unspoken words, misinterpreted gestures, broken promises. And these feelings, kept for so long, became inseparable companions, like a shadow that grows old together, weighing down the soul. I realized how this affected not just mood or behavior, but health, energy, and the sparkle in our eyes. Resentment takes root, takes up space inside us, and takes the lightness out of existence. And often the people responsible for these hurts are no longer around, and yet they continue to have power over our days. On the other hand, I've also seen people who have chosen to forgive, not because they've forgotten what happened, nor because others have changed or apologized. They forgave for themselves, because they understood that holding on to resentment was like drinking poison in the hope that the other person would suffer, and that by releasing forgiveness, they were freeing themselves from the past. Forgiveness is not saying that what was done to us was right. It's not accepting injustice. It is, above all, letting go of the weight that prevents us from moving on. When we look back with sorrow, we get stuck in what can no longer be changed. But when we look back with understanding, we can move on with a lighter heart. I myself have had to revisit old moments in my life, situations in which I felt betrayed, misunderstood, left out. And I realized that holding on to all this only made me tired. That's when I realized that forgiving is a gift we give ourselves. It's not an easy act. It requires courage. It requires giving up pride, the desire for revenge, the need to be right. But it is in this act that we find freedom. And in the end, peace is worth more than being right. Those I met who had made peace with the past carried a different kind of serenity. They spoke lightly, smiled more easily, and slept more peacefully. They had understood that forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it does change the present and transforms the future. Time teaches us that life is too short to waste energy on sorrows, that while we are alive, we have the chance to let go of the burdens we no longer need to carry, and that, often, true strength lies in letting go. So, if there's one thing I've learned and take with me, it's let go of hurts, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve to live in peace. Lesson 5. It's never too late to start again, even at the age of 77. Before entering the retirement home, I believed that certain things could only happen when you were young, change, learning something new, dreaming. All this seemed exclusive to the early stages of life, as if age were an insurmountable limit. I imagined that with time, all that remained was to accept what had already been lived, as if there was no more room for transformation. But during those 2 months, I discovered that this idea was completely wrong. I saw elderly people taking new steps, trying things out for the first time, smiling with the enthusiasm of someone rediscovering life. I met people who started painting at the age of 90, people who learned to write poetry, people who reconnected with family ties that had been broken for decades. And, most surprisingly, these people didn't do it in a hurry, but with an admirable serenity, aware that as long as you breathe, there's time to start again. This experience made me realize that starting over doesn't mean erasing the past or pretending that the years haven't passed. What touched everyone's soul were the small gestures, the everyday moments that had perhaps been ignored for so long. I saw sincere smiles emerge from a light conversation, a spontaneous compliment, a gentle touch on the shoulder. And I've understood that what money can buy, objects, status, luxury, loses its luster in the face of a genuine laugh or a look that conveys affection. Simplicity has the power to remind us of the essence of life. How many times over the years have we chased after the big, the expensive, the rare, and forgotten to value what is available to us every day? A tight hug, a plate of food made with love, a moment of silence in good company. These are the treasures that feed the heart. In the retirement home, no one spoke enthusiastically about the possessions they had accumulated or the material goods they had won. What moved them were simple memories, a walk at dusk, a song that marked their youth, an unexpected gesture of kindness. True happiness lies in the details, the ones we often miss while we're too busy looking for something bigger. I realized that over time the eyes learn to see the beauty in the ordinary. A sunny day after cloudy days, the sound of gently falling rain, a good morning said with affection. These small moments are like pearls that accumulate and together form a life rich in meaning. Simplicity requires no effort, just attention. And when we stop to notice these details, something changes inside us. We start to value more, complain less, and feel gratitude for things that previously seemed too small to merit our attention. I've learned that joy doesn't lie in what's grandiose, but in what's real. That we don't need much to be happy, just attentive eyes and an open heart. And that in the end, it's the simple moments that stay with us most strongly in our memories and in our souls. Simplicity touches where nothing material can reach, and when we embrace this truth, we find peace. These 2 months have shown me that life doesn't stop, it just changes pace. Each phase has its own time, its own value, its own beauty. Old. Age is not the end, as many people think. It's just the beginning of a new way of living, a calmer, more attentive, wiser way, and, if we allow it, a lighter, simpler, and even happier way. I realize that what really matters is not the things we own, but the experiences we live, the connections we cultivate, the memories we create. That you can start again, learn, change, and love at any age. And that, in the end, what we carry inside us is what gives our journey meaning. If I could tell you just one thing, it would be this: don't wait until you're 77 to live lightly. Don't wait for an ideal moment. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't wait any longer. Start now. Live with what you have, love with what you feel, and forgive with what you know. Because every day is an opportunity to do things differently, to do things better, to really live. Life is now, and there's still time. If this reflection made sense to you, enjoy the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to receive more stories and reflections like this one. That way, you won't miss out on any new content. Take care and see you next time. To start again is to accept who you are today, with everything you've lived through, and still choose to do something different. It's allowing yourself to dream again, even in a simple way. It's understanding that, however small the change, it can bring meaning, joy, and renewal. Many of us spend a good part of our lives saying, "One day I'll do it. When I have time, I'll try, maybe later." And suddenly we realize that this time was never used. We put our desires to one side, out of fear, out of tiredness, because we thought it was too late. But it's not. It's never too late to learn something new. It's never too late to apologize, to say "I love you," to say "thank you." It's never too late to forgive, to change your mind, to try again. Every day that dawns is an opportunity that didn't exist yesterday. I started again myself, I started again inside myself, looking at my story with new eyes. I left behind the weight of old regrets and decided to value the now. And in this now, I found space for small new beginnings. Talking more, listening more, caring about what really matters. Time may pass, the body may weaken, but the will to live that only grows old if you let it. The spirit remains young when it is nourished by hope, curiosity, and openness to the new. The biggest lesson I took away with me is that life doesn't end while we still have the chance to change something, even if it's within ourselves. Starting again at 77 has given me a new reason to get up every day, and I hope from the bottom of my heart that you never let age stand in the way of starting over. Lesson 6. What you build inside you is what you really take with you forever. During the quiet, peaceful days I spent in the retirement home, one idea became clearer and clearer to me. Nobody takes anything with them except what they have built inside themselves. As simple as this phrase sounds, it carries enormous weight. When you look at life around you, especially when you're getting closer to the end of the road, there, between conversations and shared memories, I saw that everything we spend our whole lives striving for, possessions, status, external recognition, loses its value as the years go by. No one talked about the house they owned, the car they bought, or the clothes they wore. What came up in conversation were memories, moments lived, people loved, gestures that made a difference. I also saw the pain of those who carried regrets. Words that weren't spoken, opportunities that were passed up, feelings that were kept back out of pride or fear. Material possessions became distant, forgotten. What hurt or warmed came from within. And it was then that I understood that the true inheritance of life is what we cultivate in our souls. Character, gratitude, generosity, compassion, moments of sincere love. These are the treasures that remain with us no matter how old we are. They give meaning to our existence and leave their mark on others, even when we are no longer physically present. While time passes and everything around us changes, what we have inside us becomes our true home. And it is this inner home that accompanies us to the end. So I started to ask myself, what am I cultivating inside me? Fear or courage? Bitterness or forgiveness? Indifference or empathy? Every day life offers us the chance to build something more solid than any material possession. We can build real relationships, moments of sharing, small gestures that make a difference, and all this accumulates within us as wealth that is not lost, that does not wear out, that no one can take away. I also realized that the most serene people I met were those who lived with purpose, who took care of what they carried inside. They weren't the ones who accumulated the most, but the ones who loved the most, those who forgave, who smiled, who valued what was simple. This lesson changed me profoundly. I began to give less importance to what I could lose and more to what I could be. I began to understand that we are not defined by what we possess, but by what we cultivate in our hearts. And if I could leave you with one thought, it would be this: take care of what you build inside you. Feed your soul with what is worthwhile, with what endures, because in the end, that's all we take with us and leave with others. Lesson 7. Simplicity is more valuable than anything money can buy. During the quiet days I spent in the care home, a simple scene was repeated every morning. A few residents gathered in the courtyard to drink coffee in the sunshine. No rush, no distractions, just enjoying the hot drink, watching the sky, listening to the birds singing. It was a brief moment, but full of meaning. In that environment, where many had already lived decades full of work, achievements, and worries, I realized that simplicity had gained immense value. There was no more room for ostentation or the need for big events.